Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to the live stream. I am Bill, the company's expert, and welcome to How to Get Hired. We're going to be taking your questions on anything related to the job search process and the hiring process, how to discover jobs, how to do job interviews, excuse me, how to write a resume, how to write a cover letter, job search methodologies, everything. But first, before we get started today, we're going to go over to the polls. I published several polls this week, and we're going to see what you guys said. So, starting from last week, about 54% of you guys out of 1,000 people who voted said that they have rage applied. You like that term? That's the very latest term in the world of flavor of the month management HR jargon. You like that? But yeah, it's an old concept. When you're pissed off with your job, you tend to want to apply to other jobs as a way of releasing that tension. So yes, that's been around for a very long time. That's not some new thing that's just occurring now. 88% of you guys say you would rather talk to a hiring manager over a recruiter. Only 12% of people out of 4,000 people want to talk to a recruiter over a hiring manager. And that's to be expected because, quite frankly, why would you want to talk to someone who doesn't know anything about the job itself and doesn't really understand how to evaluate a person? That's why you'd not want to talk to that person. That would be a recruiter. You'd want to talk to the hiring manager, the person who's going to be your actual boss. That's only natural. And yes, that does not come as a surprise. So that's awesome. Apparently, 78% of you guys out of 2,000 people have not walked out of a job interview by ending it early. Only 22% of people say they have ended a job interview early. I'm not going to give an opinion on that one. I have walked out of job interviews before, early in my career, in my 20s, and possibly even in my 30s. I have walked out of job interviews when it's just insulting, when you're being insulted or when the person is behaving in such a disrespectful way that, what's the point, right? And even if it was some kind of test of your character or your resilience or something like that, the fact that they choose to do that in your very first personal encounter, to me, that signals something. So, yeah, I wouldn't blame somebody from walking out. But, if you can keep a cool head and you're not up against any disrespectful people, then, yeah, why go through all that effort just to walk out? You might as well see it through if you can stomach it. What else do we have here? Out of 2,000 people... 3,000 people. Apparently, why everybody left their last job, 33% of you, which was the most, said poor compensation. Now, I can believe that because the average age on YouTube of YouTube people is in their 20s, right? 20s and early 30s is kind of the age of most people who are on YouTube. So I can believe that. The runner-up was bad people. Okay, 24% of you said that you left a job because of bad people, either having a terrible boss or terrible coworkers, or maybe having to deal with bad, annoyed customers, things like this. Okay, that tends to be the number one reason, but not among entry-level jobs. And here we go. Out of 3,500 people, they say they would rather have a good boss but bad coworkers than the other way around. That does not come as a shock. If you have a good boss, usually you'll be okay. You've got someone to talk to that has a little bit of power on their side, so that's always a good thing. And this was a joke one. Not many people picked up on the fact that this was a joke. Okay, the question was, if I were the boss, what would you do? And you had three choices. Number one, rule over my workers with an iron fist. I thought that was funny. Only 6% of people chose that. Okay, so the runner-up was 28% of you said, if you were the boss, you'd give yourself a raise and take the rest of the day off. I thought that was the best answer as a joke. And then 66% of you guys, the majority, picked the responsible answer, which was, if you were the boss, you'd work longer and harder than your workers and set a positive example. And of course, we all know that is the thing to do. Okay, we're getting to the end of this here. 76% of you have only ever been an employee. You've never had your own business or side hustle. That's to be expected. Most people don't have their own business, which, that's totally fine. Hey, that works for some people, and in fact, the majority of people, and that's the way it is. However, other people, the rebels among you, the free thinkers among you, the more independently minded people among you, one day, at some point, will probably want to have their own business operation, either something you do on the side or you own your own business. It could be a business of one, or it could be a business of 100,000. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you're in charge, you do it your way, and you reap the reward. Unfortunately, what usually comes with that is several years of learning things the hard way. So if you're prepared to stomach that, the rewards can be really big, and I'm speaking from experience here. Not finally, but moving on here, getting towards, there's only 2 or 3 more. You guys said that you would rather interact with a recruiter in an in-person meeting. Okay, the most of you said that. 39% of you said that. The runner-up was email. Yeah, if you're corporate, if you're someone who's been in big organizations your whole life, then you will probably want to do things over email. That's typical of a lot of big businesses. They don't actually get their work done. Instead, you've got entire buildings full of people in offices working hard, sending emails to each other all day long, and wondering why there's no actual work being done. And wow, this was a surprise to me. Okay, we're almost at the end of this. We're almost going to go over the questions in a second, but this was a surprise. Out of 3,000 people who voted, 72% of you said you want to run your own business someday. That was a shock. I'd love to talk more about starting businesses and entrepreneurial stuff. When I do, nobody watches my videos. That's my problem. But if you are interested, my sort of magnum opus, if you want to call it that, is the 5-part series of live streams I just did when I just uploaded to my channel called Beyond Employment. It's 5 episodes, and I pretty much give you all my high-level advice there. If you're starting out, you want to start a business, or you're just curious, you want to put your toe in the water, it's what to do. So check that out. Not many people watched it, but if you are interested, that's kind of the best I can give you. It's a little bit long-winded, but all the good stuff is there. The last job everybody had, 63% of you said was worker level. Not supervisor, not manager, not executive, but worker level. So that's not really a surprise. So we're going to be talking about job interviews. And then finally, last question, would you rather? And 60% of you, the winners, said you would rather have an awesome job with low compensation. That's what you'd rather do, rather than the opposite, have an awful job with high compensation. That signals a lot. Okay, and that was our poll. So thank you to everybody who participated. I'm going to be releasing more of those. But let's get to your questions. Let's see. We've got 25 people here. Thank you so much for being here. You guys are awesome. I'm under the weather, so hopefully you can forgive me if I'm not quite at my top form today. I've got a cold or a flu or something like that. Again, I guess that's what 2023 does to everybody. Yvonne is here. Good morning, Yvonne. Ice Cold Wasim, I recognize your name. You've been here before. Good morning. Good morning, Ice Cold Wasim. Conch 77. Good morning to you. And how do you say this? Nadita. It's all the capital letters in there. Got me confused for a second, but Nadita's here. And Lena Walker. It's all my buddies. Look at that. Lena Walker. Lena Walker says, the main problem for your business videos is YouTube. The algorithm only rewards you when you do the same thing over and over again. Well, I don't know. I used to think that. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube on how to make it on YouTube. And they're pretty much almost all wrong. The only thing you've got to do is make good quality stuff. That's it, period. Doesn't matter what your title is. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter when you post. Doesn't matter how often you post. You just got to make good stuff that people care about. That's what I've learned. Not that I do that all the time. In fact, the last few weeks have not been my best. I've sort of finished off all my podcast series, and starting next week, there's going to be a new format of videos coming out. Ice Cold Wasim says, if the interview asks me tell me about a time where you missed a deadline, and I've never missed a deadline, how do I answer this? Okay, well, this is getting into the job interview questions. This is a behavioral question, and once again, you fall back on behavioral questions, okay? If you've done what I recommend for behavioral questions, and what other people recommend too, is you think up in advance, 10 stories? 5 and 5 make 10, right, ahead of time. And a lot of those are going to be stories that involve challenges. They involve failures, okay? So somewhere along the line, you're going to have something that wasn't done quite quick enough, okay? So if someone didn't give you a hard deadline and they said you must have this done by this date, okay, and you missed it, okay, maybe if honestly you've never ever done that in your life, like even in school, like nothing like that, okay, maybe you could think of a time when something was not done as soon as it could have been, okay? Maybe that would be an acceptable substitute. And you could say something like, it was an implied deadline. It wasn't explicitly stated. Or you could just not say that at all. Don't mention anything. Just say it was late. It was late. My boss was upset because it wasn't done as soon as they would have liked. Or it could have been done earlier and it wasn't done earlier. Something like that. That's what I would think of. But hopefully one of your stories that you've thought up, your accomplishments, your achievements, that you've prepared in advance before you go to the job interview in preparation for behavioral questions. These are questions where usually it starts with, tell me about a time, and then they continue that. Tell me about a time you thought you were good and you weren't, something like that. Tell me about a time when you missed a deadline and everybody got upset. Tell me about a time when your work was found to be substandard by your boss, but you overcame this challenge. Tell you about a time that happened. Those are all behavioral questions. The reason they're behavioral questions is because the answer is not a universal answer, like tell me about yourself, or why should we hire you? The answer is going to be a unique story that's unique to you because you're telling a story from your past. That's what makes it a behavioral question. Okay, so in order to prepare for those, you prepare 10 stories in advance and you practice telling them in a very compact format, usually the star format or the star L format. Okay, but that's how you do those. Who else we got here? Semyon says, hey everyone, Vic Marshall is here. Thank you, Vic Marshall. Yes, it's weird. It's like we spent the last couple of years, at least some of us, in isolation. And then we started mixing and mingling with everybody else again in 2022. And all kinds of respiratory illnesses and stuff started up right then. And I've had one after another for the last 2 or 3 months. And I believe I'm typical of most people. Semyon says, what advice do you have for laid off IT workers like myself? Okay, laid off IT workers. Yes, I've seen a lot of layoffs in the news from big tech. Now, big tech isn't everything, okay? For every Google and Microsoft and, Spotify and all the companies like that, there's about 100,000 smaller companies that employ a lot more people altogether. Okay, that's the good news. But it is, I'm given to understand from the news, industry-wide. Here's what I would do. If I could be brutally honest with you for a second here. My interaction with IT people, and I can say this because I started off kind of as an IT person. I was a IT hardware person when I started out. Okay, when I was like 20 years old. Generally speaking, IT people, they have great technical skills. Very, very bright. They can do math. They can do all kinds of conceptual reasoning in their head, like just amazing, okay? However, and everybody else in all the other industries knows this, by the way, their weak spot is personal interaction and social skills, okay? That's why, and I didn't find this out till I was older, but all the other sort of departments in a business, right? Marketing, people like that, they don't want to deal with IT people. And the reason they don't want to deal with them is because they're not fun to talk to. Because of generally below average social skills. And once again, I'm generalizing here. There are exceptions to this, but that is the general rule. Now, what I would say is the biggest thing that can help you is to improve your social skills, improve your networking skills, okay? When you interact with somebody, you want, after the interaction is over, for them to feel, wow, I like that person. I'd like to deal with them again. Okay? You don't want them to feel the way a lot of people feel when they deal with technical people, which is, oh, I'm glad that's over. That was awkward and it was unpleasant. And if I don't see that person ever again, I'll be happy. Okay? That doesn't count in your favor when you're trying to sell yourself in a job interview and be the person that they pick, okay? So just as blanket advice, I would say focus on that. Get a job through networking, okay? There's always good jobs out there, no matter what the economy is doing. There's always good jobs out there for people who are willing to do it over networking, to find the needs and who get along with people and make people want to work with them. It's just that simple. So that's what I would say to that. That's the sort of quick answer to that. And besides, if companies are not posting jobs, okay, they're not posting a lot of jobs, or the amount of jobs that they're posting has reduced in volume, okay, that means that you've got a lot of people. Like, here's your supply. Like, okay, my screen is backwards, but this is your supply. Okay, over here. Lots of people out of work looking for a job. Okay, over here is your demand. You've got the amount of jobs that companies post publicly, and that's shrunk lately in areas like IT. So you've got all these people over here all competing and applying for these jobs here. Okay, so all the more reason to go around that and get employed through networking. Okay, you don't have to know anybody. You don't have to talk to anyone in person to get the ball rolling. I've talked about that extensively. So that's the direction I would look in. Okay, Conch77 says, question, I have a second interview tomorrow in part to following your tips. Oh, great. That's good. Thank you. You're welcome. I was told the salary range. The spread is $42. How now do I approach this question in my second interview? You don't. Your approach in the second interview, okay, and this is going to seem weird, but this is true. Your approach for salary is very much the same as it is in the first interview. If you have a third interview, it's the same. Your approach to salary before you get a written job offer is the same, which is you don't want to go into detail. You don't want to talk about it. You want to get off the topic as quickly as you can, and you never want to give a number. Okay? So if they say, the range is this to this, how much money do you need? You say, somewhere in there would be fine, right? Like an answer like that. You don't want to commit to anything. Okay? As far as they're concerned, and this is the reality, you're still learning about the job. It's impossible to say how much money you will need for it until you know all the details. There's a lot of recruiters out there who are your adversary in this negotiation. They love to give all this free advice about that's simply unrealistic. If you don't know how much money you want, you shouldn't be there. All these demeaning, arrogant answers, or you get answers from candidates who are equally incorrect when they say, oh, well, if they don't tell me how much the job pays, then I'm not interested. That arrogant sort of attitude. A lot of times that will get you eliminated right on the spot for just being like that. The reality, it's a bit of a dance. You don't know the job and they don't know you, right? So until people really come to grips with each other, you don't know what's an appropriate amount of compensation to settle on. It's just that simple. So until you get a job offer, you can't negotiate, because if you ask for too much, they'll just go to a different candidate. They'll say, you'll price yourself out of the market, and they'll go to somebody else. It's just that simple. Okay, so you try and be as vague as possible, all the way up to the point where they make you a written offer with the salary in there. That's the point where you can start to negotiate. Doesn't mean you have to negotiate, but that's, if you're going to negotiate, that's the point where it would start. Okay? Before you get the offer letter, you have absolutely nothing to bargain with, because they're still talking to other people. And what they do is they play off one candidate against another. This person wants $10, that person wants $20. Okay, well, eliminate the $20, let's go with the $10, right? That's what they do. So you have absolutely no bargaining power whatsoever. The only time you have anything remotely resembling bargaining power is when they've decided on you, they've gone through the trouble of doing background checks and all the other work that's associated with this when they want to actually hire somebody, and then they've drafted up an offer letter, they've had it approved by all the people, they've sent it to you, and now they're waiting. Right? Now, if you just walk away now, that causes them pain. They did all that work for nothing. Maybe the hiring manager, the boss, kind of had their heart set on you in their mind, like, okay, that's the person we're hiring. And it's kind of a real bitter disappointment when they discover, we can't get that person. Or they're playing hardball. They want this. Right? So at that point, if you walk away, it's actually causing them pain. If you were to walk away at any point before you get a written offer letter with the compensation, they don't care. You know, they have to eliminate people anyway. You just made it easy for them. Right? So that's how you address it. Okay? Nothing has changed since the first interview. Now, I know what most people are going to say. They're going to say, but they're putting pressure on me. I said that I didn't know in the first meeting, and now they're asking me again. It makes me feel awkward. Well, you know what? This is where you need to stick to your guns. You need to say, look, I stand by what I said before. Okay, somewhere in the range that you mentioned would be fine. I can't say precisely where until I know the details of, the offer and all this kind of stuff. No one can force you to answer a question. This isn't a court. You know what I mean? The reason they ask you the question in the first place is to try and eliminate you, right? So you feel pressure to lowball yourself, and then you say a low number, and then there's pressure to stand by that number, to stick to it, because that's what you said, even though it's what's called a psychological contract. It's where it feels like there was an agreement, but there was no agreement, right? And it's a tactic they use just to pressure you, okay? They don't know how much you're worth. They're trying to get away with paying you as little as possible, and if you respond to these and give them what they want, you're helping them. Okay? That's just how it works. And if they don't give you an offer letter, the whole thing's moot anyway. What you can do if they're really piling pressure on and you feel that if you don't give them this answer, they will cancel the entire thing on the spot and eliminate you, you could say, well, maybe something around this. And never give a number, give a range. Maybe something between, this and that, somewhere in there, possibly, right? But that's it. Don't give them any more. Okay, it's a tactic. And the reality of the situation is that every candidate, this is what nobody says, every candidate believes that they are worth more than they are. I'm not saying that to be mean. Everybody overestimates their own value. I overestimate my own value. You overestimate your own value. Everyone overestimates their own value. That's human nature. We are self-centered to a degree. And so we think that, we deserve more than we get. Every employee thinks they deserve more than they're getting. That's just the reality. And every employer feels people are worth less than what they're paying. So you get a sort of equilibrium point, right? Okay. But if you just give them whatever they need and play right into their hands, it's going to be to your disadvantage. That's all I'll say. Anyway, I do have a video on salary negotiation. It's an hour long, okay? But if you do a search on my YouTube channel for a video called Salary Negotiation, that goes into everything in great detail, and it's not as rambling as what I'm doing now. But that's an excellent question, Conch72. Don't worry about the fact it's a second interview. Nothing has changed as far as salary is concerned. The only time it gets serious is after the written offer is sent to you. Okay. Sanya, is that Sanya? Is that how you say that? I'm sure it's not Sanja. Sanya. I'm searching for a job after being sick with PTSD and depression 7 years since my years of university. Your channel is a big help. Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm sorry to hear that, Sanja. Networking is the way to go. Because if you tell a recruiter, I was off with PTSD. Oh, I haven't worked for 7 years. Things like this. I've had depression. In their minds, they go, high-risk candidate, better go with somebody else. It's stupid. So what you do is you bypass recruiters, you talk directly to the hiring manager. They see that you're awesome. They see that you're talented. They see that you're easy to deal with. And then all the concerns about you being high risk, those disappear. And you could get the job. That's usually how this goes. And I wish you every success, Sanya. Milan says, hello, Bill. Is it okay to gather experiences of the current company for your own business someday? Yes, this is what we do. We learn by observation. In fact, I recommend it. Rather than coming straight out of school, for example, never ever having worked in a real job, some people, they come straight out of the school and they say, I'm going to start my own business. Right? Pretty tough. You're up against some challenges because you don't really know how things work in the real world because you've never been out in the real world. So a great thing to do is you go get a job first in maybe the industry of your choosing that you're looking to work in, and you see what it's like on the inside. You see, how things are done. You see some of the needs. You see some of the weaknesses, right? This kind of thing. And that experience is invaluable. So, yes, that's what I would say. And yeah, if you have the ambition of having your own company, having your own business. I mean, look, let's say you worked in construction, like on the lowest end, construction or something. You want to be your own, you're going to be an independent contractor. It's a business of one person. That's your own business. But you decide how much work you do. You decide what tools you're going to use. You decide how you do it, what vehicle you're going to drive. You decide who you work for. You're in charge. You could do it your way. That's the advantage. No one's ever going to tell you, you must do this when you don't want to do it, and you don't have to do it. That's the advantage. And the other advantage is that if you could pull it off, okay, you keep 100% of the cash. You don't have to fork over 60% of it to your employer of what you made. That's the advantage. Yes, it's more risky. Yes, you have to know what you're doing, but counterbalance with that are a lot of pros. So there you go. Semyon says, although I'm a mathematician and programmer, according to my diploma, I'm in sales for 13 years of total work experience. Social skills are okay. Okay, good. Then you have an unfair advantage over a lot of other technical people. You were the IT guy, I believe. Was asking about IT. Someone was asking about IT. Anyway, if that was you, you have an unfair advantage over most other IT people because they don't do sales. They don't understand sales. You know, it's funny. This is an assumption I make. Now, I'm sure it's right probably a lot of the time, but I'm sure it's wrong some of the time. But here's an assumption I make. Whenever I get a comment from anyone, from a student, from someone commenting on a YouTube video, and they say, you know, with regard to job interviews, and they say like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's a waste of my time. Right? I can tell they've never been in sales. Because technical people usually are a lot more deterministic. The feeling is like, if I work towards something, there better be a payoff. I don't want a chance of a payoff. I want a payoff. Right? But anyone who's been in sales, you know that, okay, you have to pursue leads, and a lot of those leads are not going to work out, in which case you could argue that you've wasted your time. But some of the leads will work out, in which case you get the payoff, right? But that's just how it goes. It's a numbers game. There's no way to tell which leads are going to work out, which ones won't. It's random chance. It's statistical probability. Finance is like that. You make one investment here, you lose your money. You make one investment there, it pays off tenfold. I mean, there's no way to tell how they're going to go in advance. I mean, beyond a few basic things, there's still a huge amount of statistical probability. You know, so you resign yourself to that. So anybody complaining about, oh, you know, if the company doesn't tell me their salary right up front, then it's a waste of my time to even show up at the interview. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, if you're in a high demand field or you're just extremely gifted or talented or something, I guess you can afford to be that arrogant, but most people can't. That's usually, you usually don't come out on top with that attitude. But whatever, people tend to learn the hard way. You either learn the easy way or the hard way. So one way or another, you'll figure it out. What do we got here? No, not JASP. JSAP. JSAP. How do you negotiate a salary after a written offer is given? What are the right steps? Well, listen, that's a huge topic, okay? I'm a technical person myself, so all I think of is like all the stuff that you have to understand, all these principles. It's hard to explain in like a couple of minutes. But basically, a really important principle to understand is that for negotiation, okay, you have what's called a reservation price. It's something that's like the highest you'll go. Like if you're wanting to buy something, say you're wanting to buy a car, okay? In your mind, kept confidential is the highest amount you would pay. You don't disclose that to the other party, okay? The person selling the car dealership, in their mind, is the lowest they would possibly sell it for. That's their reservation price, okay? Now, maybe there's no overlap between those two. Maybe the most money you would pay is still too little for what they would ever sell it for, in which case there's no zone of possible agreement, okay? It just doesn't align, okay? But usually what happens is there is some overlap, okay? The problem is that you know your reservation price, but you don't know theirs, okay? So that's the first thing to note. It isn't always possible to negotiate something, okay? However, if it is, another principle is that there is more than one dimension to this deal. We're not just talking about salary or wage. There's other things, okay? There's like, when do you want me to start? There's, what shift am I going to work? There's, how dedicated do you want me to be? There's all kinds of other things you can negotiate with. So something you can do is give them a bunch of things, whatever those are, okay? Whether it's, this is what they're giving you for benefits, for sick days, for vacation days, for days off, for work hours, for shift work, for flex time, like there's all kinds of other things in there, right? Do you, if you have to wear, I don't know, personal protective equipment or something, do you have to pay for it? There's all kinds of other things. So you could give them some stuff, but then say, well, I need that number changed to this. That's usually just in a nutshell, that's kind of my best advice. When I've only got like a minute to explain, that's probably the best way to do it. Give them a bunch of things and then say, I need that changed to this. And if you do that, we got a deal. So you want to signal that you're very agreeable, okay? Because that's something, especially if you're dealing with a hiring manager, that's something that is very important to communicate. I'm not going to fight you on everything, because if they feel that you're going to fight them on everything, they'll just dig their heels in, okay? But if you say, no, I'm being reasonable. Look, this is fine. That's fine. This is fine. I'll give you this. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That's fine. This is all like, less than I'm used to receiving. Okay. But for this number here, I need that to be this. Okay. You make that one change. Everything's fine. We got a deal. And I will start whenever you want. I can start right now if you wish. Something like that. It's like a carrot and stick approach. You give them a few things. You have this one demand, and then everything's fine. No longer any pushback. Okay, for most people, that's about as sophisticated as it gets. Okay, if you're going to negotiate, that's about as simple as it gets. Lino Walker, absolutely. Stealing the trade is part of the reason I changed my entire career to digital marketing. Oh, it's something I can directly apply to my side hustle. Good. Yeah. Well, the great thing about marketing is that if you can learn what people respond to in a good way, that's very useful. That will help you. I want to tell you guys a story. It's very quick. Just happened to me. I have a house with a garage. I have one of those garage door openers. You press the button and the little motor turns and opens the door. It broke and I needed to get a new one. So hired a company. It's a company I actually worked with, like in a business capacity. So I thought they were pretty good. And they are pretty good. One tradesman makes the initial visit to my house to just, not to finish the job, not to change out the door opener, but just to look to see the situation, see if they could fix the old one, ask me, if I have any preferences, stuff like that. Does the initial sort of inspection. This person was awesome. They had the technical skills. They were super friendly, super personable. They could communicate very, very well. They were a pleasure to deal with. And I absolutely wanted that technician to come back and install the product that I ordered. However, that didn't happen. I got a second technician who came back to actually do the heavy work and change out the door opener. This person, they were trustworthy and they had great technical skills. They did a good job, and I left them alone working in my garage with all my stuff. They didn't abuse that privilege. They did their job. However, terrible social skills. Person drives up to my house, sits in their truck. I come up to them. They don't introduce themselves. They're just like looking at me like this. Don't explain why they're there. Don't explain what they're doing. I have to ask all the questions. I have to initiate any kind of communication. When I start asking the person a question, they turn around and walk away while I'm talking to them. Like for no reason. Like it's just them working in my place. So anyway, bottom line, both technicians, I'm sure are really good on a technical side. I have no complaints in a technical area, but the first person, I would have hired them on the spot. Second person, I don't want to ever deal with them ever again. That's the difference that social skills make, especially for technical people. Okay, I've told another story a long time ago where my boss, who was the CEO of a company, and I was working with them, I had brought in some contractors to do some work in our offices, in our building, and they had sent a couple of people to work in the office areas and stuff. And they'd sent a technician, a tradesperson. I can't remember I think they were an electrician or something. Anyway, they were super friendly. They were talking to people. They were doing their job. They were doing their work well, and on time, all the rest of it. after this person leaves, my boss, the CEO, comes up to me and says, "Who is that person? You know, like, can we hire them?" Literally, that's what he said to me. I said, "Oh, that's one of the people I brought in from this company. They're doing this work." He's like, "Yeah, we should hire that guy." Right? That's the difference that social skills make. So brush up on your social skills, okay? Be friendly, be personable, learn how to communicate well with different types of people. The more effort that you put towards that, the more you invest in yourself for that, easy way to make things go well for you. All of a sudden, opportunities come out of the woodwork. All of a sudden, you get the job, you know, things like this. Anyway, that's the end of my stories. Herbie Jr. says, how do you deal with the salary question when you're filling out an online application and they demand an amount for expected salary, but you don't want to put a high amount and rule yourself out? I have to do another video of this. I have a video on that, how to fill in the salary question on job applications. Here's the deal. You know why they're asking it. They're asking it to weed you out, right? A lot of times, if you put too high of a number, applicant tracking software will just stop your application right there, eliminate you. They won't even show your application to a human. Okay, so that's why they're asking the question, not because they're going to honor this or assess your worth or evaluate your alleged worth versus what your resume shows you have. Nothing like that. It's a pure like pass or fail question. Here's the deal. Here's how I say you answer that. If they're asking you this at a very early stage, usually you don't know a lot about the job. Oh, sure, you've read the job description. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about things that they don't mention. What are your hours? Will you have a good boss? Will you have good coworkers? Working conditions, all that kind of stuff. You know, the exact nature of your compensation or the company's policy on vacation, sick days, blah, 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 blah. You don't know any of that at this point, right? You also don't know who you're going to be working with, what precisely you'll be doing. Okay? So here's the deal. When it comes to a question like that, all those details that you don't have, imagine that they're the best case scenario. Okay? Let's say that, I don't know, you've always wanted to, work with Brad Pitt. There you go. If you're female, at least back in my day, a lot of ladies would have loved to meet Brad Pitt and work with them. If you're getting a job in California, maybe you might meet Brad Pitt. It might work out, right? You don't know that is not going to happen. So just imagine that and then fill in that salary field as if everything you don't know is best case scenario. It's your dream job, okay? How much money would you need to take that job if everything else you don't know about it was absolutely perfect? Okay, it'll probably be a very low number, right? Enter that number. It'll probably be a low number. You'll probably pass the pass-fail test there, okay? Later on, as they give you more information about the job, you learn the working conditions. You get to meet the hiring manager and see that they're a colossal prick. Then you could revise that number upwards as you learn more about what you're getting into. Okay? 100% honest, 100% ethical, 100% integrity. And hopefully you get past the initial application. Oh, my nose is completely blocked, but I'm going to do this anyway. Dad Fleming. Yeah, the true learning is when you hit the wall with your head. Yes, it is, unfortunately. Yeah. And I don't know this for a fact, but I was going to say all successful people have done that, have failed spectacularly more than once. Usually over and over again. That's how you learn, right? The thing to do is to manage the risk when you're learning, right? Don't bet your life savings. Don't bet your entire future income on like one thing and then have it blow up in your face. Manage manage the risk. The honest pedal review. Pedal review. You mean guitar pedal? I hope you mean guitar pedals. I love to talk guitar pedals. I never do because that's like a personal thing and this is a business thing. But yeah, DS1 all the way. Okay, I've been applying to new jobs and none of them get back to me. The company I work for is dealing with 5 class action lawsuits. Could employers see this and deny me for the company I work for having a poor reputation? Possibly, yes. But, I mean, unless you're like at the executive level, you know, that you've actively participated in it, my personal opinion is that it doesn't matter, right? Now, if you're like a C-level executive and on your resume is a company that you worked for 10 years and they've just been shut down by the government for essentially breaking the law, yeah, that could impact on you if it's a high-profile thing that's been in all the, I was going to say the newspapers, but I don't know if those exist anymore. It's been in the media, right? Yes, and I have some experience with that. So, yeah, I mean, if you go to the job interview and everything you say is an example from working at that problematic company, that could be perceived as an issue. If you have a collection of different experiences from different places that you could pull out, it's all from the same place, that would serve your cause. And on your resume, I wouldn't put like, the name of the company like front and center, I'd keep it just, it's there, but it's not like the most prominent thing that you immediately notice. Dad Fleming, you think it's good? It's a good idea to work for somebody which, even though he hired you for what you asked for, he mentioned he thinks is too high? Well, I mean, you're asking if it's a good idea to work for them? What are you going to do? Quit your job if they hired you, but then the person makes this comment? I don't know. It's not an ideal situation if that's their honest belief. But what I would try and do, I mean, this sounds cheesy, but what I would try and do is try and demonstrate that you are worth that. Thank you, Lido, and thank you, Yvonne. Thank you. That's very nice if I'm saying that right. Yvonne. It's very nice of you. ASD. Diego. Tanya, is that Tania? I was going to say Tania. That's not how you say that. Tanya, just that there's an I. What should I do if the recruiter contacted me? I had to interview with her. She told me that she will send my CV to a hiring manager, and after that is silence for 1.5 months. Is that silent rejection? Unfortunately, probably yes. Yeah, that's usually how it goes. There's always exceptions, but that's pretty much how it goes. Recruiters will never give you bad news. They will never say, sorry, it didn't work out for this reason. That's what everybody wants. You want to know that it didn't work out. You don't want to be kept in suspense. You want to, if it's a no, you want to know that it's a no, and you want to know exactly why, right? Those things usually don't happen. The first one almost never happens. The second one never happens, right? Usually, instead of telling you, sorry, you didn't get the job, if you're dealing with an actual recruiter, they'll just stop talking to you. They won't respond to emails, won't respond to messages. That's the signal that, sorry, you didn't get it. You've been eliminated, okay? I'm not saying that they could do that for other reasons, too. Maybe they went on vacation. But usually, that's their wonderful way of telling you that it didn't work out. There's two sides to that. I've seen both sides. To defend recruiters, it's a rough job. For every job you hire, you're recruiting for, there's like at least 100 applicants that didn't get it. So you got to call 100 people and tell them, like, give them bad news. Sometimes you get a hostile response. Sometimes you get insults hurled your way. I mean, it can be rough, okay? On the other hand, it's an unprofessional way to treat people. It really is, especially young people that, God bless them, they actually take people at their word. So when the recruiter says, I'll get back to you, they sit by the phone and they're waiting for the phone to ring. Just waiting for it to ring, right? It never does. It's like they said they'd get back to me. They said they'd get back to me by Tuesday. Yeah, that's code a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times for I will not get back to you. You will never hear from me again because it's a no. And they will never, ever, ever tell you the real reason why. Because that's like playing poker and showing your cards. Here's how we evaluate people. Here's the secret things we look for. And this is exactly what you didn't have, right? If they tell you that, you could game the system. You could now that I know that they're looking at that, I'm going to say this, right? And sort of hack that, right? That's why they never do it. So, look, always be looking forward. Never be looking back, okay? If you applied for the job, they brought you in for an interview, they brought you in for a second interview, right? Don't just wait for the phone to ring. Don't stop your job search while you wait for that to come to fruition. Be looking at the next thing. Be looking for the next job opportunity, the next job to apply to, the next person to talk to, the next informational interview to do with a hiring manager. Whatever it is, always be pursuing the next opportunity. And if somebody stops you with a job offer, great. But until then, just keep going. Anyway, I wish you nothing but success, Tanya. Roman says, can you recommend something about a CV? Well, first of all, don't call it a CV. It's a resume. CV is, curriculum vitae is what academics use. It lists your publications, okay? Or books you have written, that kind of thing. So that's technically what a CV is. A resume lists experience. So most people wanting to get a job are using resumes. Yeah, I've done a video on that. Go check out my video on how to write a resume. I've done several videos on it. There's like different types of resume you could write. Some are appropriate for different jobs. If you're at this level or this level, you'd use one type. If you're at this level or that level, use a different type. So check those out. Yes, guitar pedals. That's funny. I'm working on a DS1 review. Well, I bought something like 25 different distortion and overdrive pedals that I systematically tried out. My favorites were the Boss DS1. If you put it with an EQ on it right at the end, like boost around 800 cycles, amazing sound. There's a reason why that thing's been around since 1978. It kicks ass. The Boss overdrive pedals are actually really good. They do sound like tubes. Like the closest a transistor pedal can sound like a tube that isn't a modeler. I think those are actually really, really good. Like Super Overdrive or OD1 or OD3. Those are all really good. Anyway, forget that. I would love to have a whole extra channel where I just talk about that kind of stuff, but you can only do so much. I'm just a tech support agent at the company I work for right now. Okay, well, hey, that's fine. That's a great opportunity to develop some personal interaction ability, because technical skills with great personal skills is unstoppable. Diego, my message doesn't appear on the screen. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not an expert on this. I haven't put a bunch of filters or a ton of filters on it. Make sure you're not using like any questionable language, and it should be okay. You're absolutely welcome, the Autos Pedal Review. I'm going to check out your channel sometime. Yvonne, yes, you're saying it right. Thank you. Awesome. Well, I said it two different ways. Yvonne and Yvonne. That's great. Thank you for being here. And Dad Fleming, in some parts of Europe, it's called a CV. Yeah, I know. In some parts of the world, they don't use the right terms, but that's okay. Yes. Anyway, we're at the end of the questions. I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon, actually, because unfortunately I'm under the weather. Dan Fleming, about my question. What I asked for was actually low for my experience. I did a very good job, but it turned out it was a disaster. It was a disaster as a manager. You mean the manager was a disaster? Yeah, that has been known. This is the thing about getting a job. You have to. The thing that usually will be an indicator of whether it's going to be a good job or not is if your immediate boss thinks highly of you or not. That's usually kind of how these things go. You could be a complete idiot, but if your boss thinks you're awesome, then it'll probably work out really well. You could be the most amazing, hardworking genius in the world, but if you have an idiot boss who doesn't see your value, it's probably not going to work out. So that's kind of how these things go. JSAP says, once you get a job, when is the appropriate time to ask for a raise? There is no appropriate time. I don't know. Asking for a raise is to me, it's a very artificial situation because on the one hand, they've already got you for let's say they're paying you, I don't know, 40 bottle caps per hour. Okay. Whatever currency, $40 or 40 pounds sterling or whatever, 40 per hour. Okay. You're working for 40, but then you go to your boss and you say, you know what? I think I deserve 50, right? Now, the boss's situation, if this was a smaller company, this would be a lot more visible. But the boss is saying, okay, so that means that I would have to take 10 out of my pocket and give it to you. You see, I'm taking home that extra 10 myself, right? But you're asking me to take money out of my own pocket and give it to you just because you asked me to do that, right? It's the same thing as somebody, to me, it's the same thing as somebody asking you on the street, hey buddy, can I have $10? And you say, sure, here you go. Not that they look like they need it, they're starving or anything. It's like, no, it's just a person. Like me, I stop you on the street to say, hey, how you doing? How you doing, Yvonne? Can I have $10? Right? It's like part of you is like, I feel a little bit of peer pressure to give you $10 because you asked me to. I want to be accommodating, right? I want to be agreeable. But on the other hand, no, this is my $10. I need my own money, why should I give it to you? Especially when I don't need to give it to you because I'm paying you 40 right now instead of 50 and you're staying. So unless I believe you're going to leave over a matter of $10 an hour or whatever, or 10 bottle caps an hour, I'm not going to give it to you. So it's a very artificial situation. The only way it works is really it depends on two things. Number one, if your boss actually believes that you will leave over this, right? Then they feel pressure to actually, entertain your request. If the other thing where this could work is sort of like a humanistic sort of thing. It's like, well, I don't want to create awkwardness between us, so I'd want to be agreeable. So maybe I feel pressure to actually give you the extra $10, to give you a raise from 40 to 50 bottle caps an hour or per year or whatever you're working for. Right? That's the mechanism behind this. And usually people will say no, right? Especially in large organizations because, it's like, why would I pay you more when I've already got you? Right? So that's kind of what you're up against. So it totally depends on the personal qualities of your boss and the personal relationship that you guys have. Right? And it's very hard to give people advice on that. You just have to, it depends on who you are and who your boss is and what they think of you and, all that kind of stuff. So you can try it. But there's no appropriate time. I wouldn't do it like 1 week after you start. Put it that way. I mean, you could, like there's nothing to say that you can't and be successful, but usually it would be after something where they see your value or they are especially taken with your performance. That might be a good time to just sort of swoop in there and say, can I have a raise? When they're particularly happy with you. But it's an artificial situation. I mean, it goes contrary to a lot of negotiation. People don't give up money for free when they don't have to. So the key is to be able to force their hand. Convince them that no. If I don't get this, I'm leaving, and it's going to be very disruptive. It's going to cost you way more than $10 an hour for one employee to start all over again with a brand new person and have to do a job search for a replacement, right? That would be painful. That's going to cost you a lot more. So your boss is thinking, okay, on the one hand, it's going to cost me X. Where's my head here? X to find, a new person and train them and get over the learning curve, or Y, I pay $10 an hour, There's a whole bunch of factors. If you work in an organization where 10 people bring in $10 million a year in profit, which does happen, especially if you work in industrial areas or resource areas, very small amount of people bring in a hell of a lot of revenue or a hell of a lot of profit. So if one of those people, who averages, each employee averages bringing in $1 million a year, says, I need $10 more, usually most bosses will go, sure, no problem. But you try that at McDonald's, where they have a lot of people bringing in this much profit every year, margins are very, very tight, or in the airline industry, same thing. You've got unions and stuff there too. So it makes it hard to do this. But the answer is no. It's like, no, I can't do that. If I give you a raise, I have to give everyone a raise, and we can't afford it. So it's entirely up to a personal relationship. Whew. Yes, I have to wrap this up in a couple of minutes. I'm sorry, I'm really not feeling very well. I'll just answer what the questions that people have sent in that are on the screen now and call it a day. Okay, where did I leave off here? Diego, maybe can you check the YouTube chat and only the screen on your left? I'm not using it inaccurately. Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. I have Streamlabs OBS open in front of me, and that's all I could see. So all I could see is the feed. Dad Fleming says, Diego, YouTube sometimes thinks we spam and cut out some messages. Okay. Yvonne says, I hope you're feeling better soon. I meant you said my name right since the beginning, the first version. Thank you for all your help and going live, even though you don't feel well. It's my pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you for saying so. Will says, send the question again. Will says, thanks for everything, Bill. Well, Will, you're absolutely welcome. From Bill. And you are awesome. Diego, greetings from Uruguay. Uruguay, that's Quito, right? Capital Uruguay is Quito. Dan Fleming, get better soon. Booth or boss is sometimes the same thing, unfortunately. I think I said boff. That's what I said. LOL. JSAP. I still like JSAP. Name with a bit of kick to it, Sorry, maybe I didn't write it correctly. Let me explain. I have been in the company for 3 years now, but I don't want to work with the same salary forever. Okay, so 3 years and it's the same salary, no adjustment for cost of living or inflation or anything like that. Okay, well, depending on the circumstances, you can make a case on that basis and say, look, you've paid me the same amount for 3 years. During that time, inflation has gone up X. Cost of living has gone up X. That means I'm making less money in terms of real value than I was at the beginning. And I'm not entirely happy with that. Now, listen, just whining about your salary doesn't really do any good. So what if that's valid, if you have valid reasons and you're actually worth a lot more than that, go and get some alternative job offers. People usually don't like me saying that. They go, oh, that's work and I got to do. Yeah, well, put your money where your mouth is. If you go back to your boss and say, look, I've got a competing offer for this much, which is more than what you're paying me. Can you match it? That's pretty compelling, right? Then whichever way things go, you will come out on top. Okay? That's the surefire way to do it. Okay? It's also good practice getting a job. It's easier to get a job when you're employed than when you're not employed in some circles. Okay? So it develops your skills in being able to sell yourself and persuade people that you're awesome, which is an essential life skill. Dad Fleming, the only way to ask for a raise is to submit your resignation. Yeah, well, the company, the company that I worked for the longest, that I enjoyed the most, you kind of had to do that. You had to, and they did that. They had somebody said, I want more money, I want more money, I want more money. The boss kept saying, no, no, no. And then the employee leaves. And then they call the employee at home and say, okay, we'll give you your money. Come back. So the employee was gone for a week. They had quit and rehired in 7 days. And, you have to do that to show that you're serious. I'm serious. I need this much money. I'm not bluffing. I'm not making this up. I need that much money. If you can't pay it, I'm out the door. If they believe that, then a lot of times they'll go, okay, we need to do this. It's a lot less expense than finding somebody new, hiring them, training them, and then waiting for them to get their productivity up, right? But the problem is they don't believe you when you say, I will walk. That's a problem. Well, thank you, JSAP. That's very kind of you to say. Okay, Jay Galima, can you send my question? Maybe it works for you. Dan Fleming, how much time do you think it takes for salaries to catch up with all the cost of living increased by 20%? I don't think they will. That's just my opinion. It's the default thing that you do in life is get a job. You say, I don't understand business. I don't understand the way the world works. I don't understand how to create value myself, but I understand you do. So I'll work for you and I'll stand with my hand out and you give me whatever money you feel you have left over. And surprise, surprise, they don't give you a lot. I know this is very harsh when I say it. I don't mean to be harsh. I mean this to be realistic because that's what we see, right? That's how it goes. I've been on all sides of this. I've run my own company. And actually, I've run a company on behalf of somebody else. And then I have my own consulting firm right now. But that's just how it goes. I mean, employers don't give out money for free. They'll pay you as little as they can get away with, right? That's the unfortunate truth. And you will try and get as much as you can get away with, right? That's how this works. There's not much fair play, like, I feel you deserve more, so I'll give it to you. I mean, look, in some corners of the economy, there is. If you work for nonprofits, some nonprofits, the good ones, not the corrupt ones, but the good ones, the ones that actually care about people. You can see that. And they have achieved some absolutely fantastic results in those places. But for most other people that don't work in those little niches, I'm Canadian, I say niches, not niches. That's how it goes. So I don't think it necessarily will. In fact, that is the trend over the last, 20, 30 years? Salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living. At least average salaries are not. Right? There's more of a wealth disparity, especially in the United States. Right? I think they're leading the charge on that one. Right? The 1%ers are, owning, how much is it? What's the latest? 1% of the population owns 60% of the wealth or something like that, some high weird number. It's a lot. if the people running the companies had their way, they would, like, this is not a priority for them. You know what I'm saying? This is why I recommend people work for themselves. If you have any desire to do that, even if it's just for the money, you know, I think that's a really good goal to have, you know. And then you can make things happen for yourself. You don't have to go on your knees, cap in hand, to a corporate recruiter begging for a job, because you generate your own income yourself without needing anybody else. That's the beauty of it. You know exactly what to do to walk out that door, and then by the time you come back in at the end of the day, you've made money for yourself in a legitimate way, and hopefully a way that is something you want to do, it's creatively satisfying for you. And, you know, there's no scams, there's no trickery. It's all honest, it's all above board. You get a good feeling out of doing it, and you make your living doing it. I think it's a great ambition to have. Okay, my ears are starting to unblock so I can do this a little bit longer. Diego, sure thing. What was your question? Okay, eventually we'll get that question. I'm waiting for it. It's been building up. Herbie Jr., welcome to the chat. You're awesome. You are too, Herbie. Thanks for being here. I subscribe to your channel for some time now because you give great interview tips. Thank you for doing this again. Well, soon. Make it a great day. Well, thank you. That's a little bit of positivity thrown away. And Herbie, you are awesome. You are improving yourself, and that says a lot about you. Sooner or later, you are going to be awesome. You're going to win big time. Awesome Raj. There's a name. I love that name. Salam. Is it Shalom or Salam? So your videos are helping me a lot, giving me tons of confidence and ideas. Well, thank you. You deserve to have a lot of confidence, especially with a name like Awesome Raj. Oh, bad. Jeez. Okay. Dan Fleming, I think even if you have your own company, you still have a boss, your customers. Yeah, you do. But look at it this way. Your customers are voluntary, okay? They don't have to buy your products. They buy your products because they want to, right? If they got a problem with you, or they got a problem with your products or your service, they're no longer your customers, right? So if you have customers, they're there voluntarily because they want to buy the stuff that you have. They feel it's worth it, right? It fills their need. It satisfies their wants, right? You know, especially having long-term customers. There's some business models where you have long-term customers. People keep coming back to you again and again and again and again. Other business models where you don't have long-term customers. When was the last time that you bought a house from a builder and then went back 2 years later and bought another house from that same builder, right? How often does that happen? Not very often. So they operate a little bit differently. You could lie to people, you could give them a bad experience because you know that they're never coming back, right? Okay, other businesses, you know, you've convinced them that you're awesome. Whenever they need this, they come to you and you will not disappoint. And they kept coming back to you again and again and again and again for years and years. They've spent tons of their money with you. You know, you don't even have to advertise because they know who you are and word of mouth spreads. You know, that's the best type of business to be in because you're doing an awesome job. People think you're wonderful. They're happy to give you their money. They're happy to pay out a little more for your product than anybody else's because they are crazy about you and what you do, right? That gives you a good feeling. You got a lot of happy people involved. In a way, you could look at it as like you're making a difference, you know? And you come out on top financially. I mean, that's a win-win-win-win. So, you know, that's what I recommend to people. You know, if you have something that you'd like to do, you have your own thoughts on how things should be done. You have your own creative ideas on how to do things, you know. Now, you combine that with a bit of knowledge of how to do things right, and I'd say go for it. Manage the risk, you know. Don't take massive risks to do this. Do little baby steps just to kind of validate everything as you go. Build and build and build. And one day, you will come out on top. And you don't have to answer to people. And There's many advantages. Anyway, I could go on forever, but I won't. Dan Fleming. But obviously, if you have your own company, you have more potential, that's for sure. Yes. And there's no ceiling for your income. That's the other great thing that nobody talks about. It's like, you work at a certain pay grade, essentially, in the economy, whether it's explicit or it's implicit, you're at a certain sort of pay level, right? There's caps on that, really. If you do your own thing, there's no caps on it. If you figure out how to do something really well and do it efficiently, you get to keep it all. You get to keep the whole pot. So I think it's a good ambition to have. Maybe it's childish, but as just an employee, I still feel like I have a small company, my own person. My product is myself. Childish, I know. That's not childish. All you need to do is be able to take that person who is producing something of value, okay? You add the marketing component, so you could sell yourself independently of any company, and then you add the administrative component. You understand like how to do taxes and accounting and all that kind of stuff. Usually you just farm that out to an accountant or people, but tax expert. But you stay on top of it. And there you go. You are literally your own company at that point. Anyway, this isn't really a live stream about entrepreneurial stuff. This is about how to get a job. So there you go. But anyway, we've reached the end of the questions. Here's where I'm going to leave it today. Thank you so much for showing up. And stay tuned to my channel, because next week I'm going to start to have videos in a new format. And hopefully people will like them. But we'll see. And I'm here every Wednesday for the live stream. Hopefully I'll be able to do it for longer next week. So, one last question before I actually sign off. Diego, is it nice to send an email after a second interview? What do you include in it? Well, just the typical thank you email, which is like, thank you very much for the opportunity to come in and meet you guys or speak with you guys. I'm very excited about this role. I look forward to hearing back from you. If you need any information or anything else I can help you with, please let me know. Thank you very much. Take care. Something like that. That's good. Anyway, you're awesome, Diego. You're awesome, Yvonne. You're awesome, everybody who participated today and everybody who's been here. Take care. I will see you next Wednesday.